When it comes to oral therapies in psoriasis, I think we've just had so few that there's always been an open question of can they maintain efficacy, particularly in people that stay on them continuously and do pretty well in the same way we've come to expect with biologic therapies. And while, from the outside, the assumption may be, well, of course they should, there really hasn't been great formal demonstration of that data, in part because it's just been a pretty dry pipeline of oral therapies. So the nice thing with our TYK2 inhibitor deucravacitinib is that in addition to its short and medium term efficacy that is reflective of what we have come to expect from biologic therapies, the long-term efficacy suggests that even with pretty strict analysis, you're seeing results maintained not only over 1 year, 2 years, but 3 years as well. And I think it's a nice feather to have for anybody that may be on the fence about whether or not they may want to pursue an oral versus an injectable therapy if their thought was that perhaps they may end up losing efficacy over time. I think the other part to really mirror the good story about 3-year efficacy is safety. And I think that as we've piled up more and more safety data with deucravacitinib, obviously there's some debate about whether or not it is a JAK inhibitor or not. The fact that it lacks a box warning is reassuring for patients. But bottom line, the safety is reflective of the early and short-term safety profile too. So in addition to that long-term maintenance, you're really getting good continued safe potential use. Well, I was just commenting on a pretty dry pipeline of oral therapies, but in recent times, we've ended up having sort of a rich number of entrants. And in addition to TYK2 inhibition, oral peptide blockers that actually are able to stop certain cytokines that we typically think about only associated with biologic therapies. And so the J&J molecule is definitely one of those that with its sort of 16 and 52-week data, what we're seeing is very, very similar levels of efficacy, meaning that we're actually getting to high levels of improvement pretty early on, and it's being maintained. So again, a different mechanism of action because it's not a formal enzyme inhibitor or allosteric site inhibitor. And it's not a PDE4 inhibitor, but rather sort of directly inhibiting a cytokine. And the fact that we're getting not only complete clearance, but complete clearance at levels of 40 something percent of patients over that long run, this is now pushing the bar on oral efficacy, maybe into our more recent generation, third generation, fourth generation biologics as well. So that's huge because, again, it goes back to the point that oftentimes we were very reticent to discuss oral therapies on the same par as biologic therapies, just given the fact that we didn't have many options and there was clear efficacy differences. But that gap is really narrowing. And we have options on both sides of the fence that look like are going to be good choices depending on what the patient wants. So the big takeaway from the J&J data might be that we're going to be able to have more effective shared decision making with our patients in the psoriasis world, where we can really flexibly choose the right treatment for them that meets their needs without really having to sacrifice much in the way of efficacy. So it's really exciting to see what phase 3 is going to hold for this molecule. Yeah, so with psoriasis, biologic therapy looked like it was going to be the beginning and end of innovation, but I'm just excited that innovation is still happening in a disease where the majority of people are not optimally treated to control their symptoms. And I'm sure one part of that is definitely related to just hooking up the right treatment with the right patient, but also the right route of treatment to the right patient. Studies have suggested that this is an important feature, not only of healthcare providers, but also as well. So I'm excited that beyond looking at 23 and TYK2, there are other oral modalities in early stage of investigation that really should give us more armamentarium, if you will, for treatment of psoriasis in different ways. Bimekizumab is the newest biologic therapy that we've had approved for moderate to severe psoriasis, one that we were waiting for a while because it offers a unique proposition of extraordinarily quick results, high levels of clearance, and thus far pretty good sustained activity over time. And what makes bimekizumab a bit different than other therapies is that it's an IL-17A and F blocker, as opposed to just IL-17A, meaning that it's actually blocking the most prevalent type of IL-17 that we think about lesionally in psoriasis. And it's most likely due to this complete blockade that we end up seeing efficacy that really gives us some of the highest 100% clearance rates, as well as some of the fastest first dose efficacy that we've observed. So the long-term bimekizumab data was taking a look at up to 4 years out from initial dosing. And what it showed was that for individuals that were good responders early on, about 9 out of 10, more than 9 out of 10 of them were actually maintaining that response up to 4 years. When taking a look at individuals that were getting to that complete clearance mark, again, we were taking a look at slightly lower, but that was more than sort of 7 out of 10 individuals as well. Really exciting to be thinking about patients that are almost completely clear, staying almost completely clear, and then people who are totally clear, staying totally clear. And the fact that you're not seeing too much of a difference between these data of looking at maybe a PASI 90 or PASI 100 is also remarkable, because just up until a few years ago, PASI 75 was really what we were pushing on. And it seems like now the expectation should be PASI 90 to PASI 100 for our psoriasis therapies. If there was a PASI 200, I wish we could get there as well. But for now, it's just really exciting to think about 100% clearance being the expectation for the majority of patients who are responding well to a therapy over the course of several years.